The autumn sun painted the glass towers of New York in liquid gold as people hurried through the streets, clutching coffee cups and chasing deadlines. Inside the corner suite of the Riverside Grand Hotel, however, time seemed to move differently. The suite belonged to James Whitmore, a man whose name alone stirred whispers in boardrooms across America. James was the kind of billionaire whose presence filled every room, not because he flaunted his wealth, but because of the quiet gravity he carried. Tall, with streaks of gray brushing his temples, his steel blue eyes were neither harsh nor soft. They carried stories, victories, and private scars no one knew. He had built an empire from nothing, and yet, there was something missing in the empire's king. That morning, James was seated at a polished oak table, staring at 4 black envelopes, each containing a single item, a platinum, unlimited, cards without ceilings, the kind of financial key that could unlock any dream. But these were not gifts of vanity. They were invitations, tests of character, perhaps even desperate attempts to discover what money could never truly buy. Across the room stood 4 women, each different, each waiting. The first woman, Victoria, wore a crimson dress that shimmered with confidence. She was a rising socialite, the kind of woman who knew how to turn heads and command attention. Her smile was as polished as her diamond earrings. The second, Maria, was a struggling single mother. Her hands trembled as she clutched her worn purse, her dark eyes betraying both strength and desperation. The third, Eleanor, was an ambitious lawyer, sharp as the heels she stood on. Her life was built on logic and contracts, and though her lips curved into polite professionalism, her gaze flickered with calculation. The fourth woman, Claire, was quiet. A schoolteacher whose dress was simple, her hair pinned back without fuss. She stood with an air of humility, her presence soft but steady, like a candle that did not beg to be noticed, yet brought light all the same. And then there was someone else in the room, someone who wasn't supposed to matter. Amelia, the hotel maid, barely 22, moving silently with her cleaning cart in the corner. She had been asked to tidy the suite before the meeting but had not left in time. She kept her head down, eyes low, sweeping up the remnants of someone else's luxury life, invisible in the way that maids often are. James cleared his throat, his voice deep, resonant. "Each of you has been chosen today for a reason," he began, sliding the envelopes forward. "Inside these is a card with no limit. What you do with it, how you use it, will tell me more about who you are than any words ever could. You have 30 days. When you return, I want to know how you spent it." Gasps filled the room. Victoria's painted lips curled in a grin. Eleanor's fingers twitched with eagerness. Maria's breath hitched as though she couldn't dare to believe. Claire blinked in stunned silence. And Amelia, she dropped her cloth, startled. Her eyes flicked up briefly, then back down. She wasn't included, of course. She wasn't meant to be. The 4 journeys. The women left with their cards, each heart pounding with possibilities. Victoria, within hours, was draped in silk gowns and dripping in jewelry. She rented yachts, threw parties, filled her days with champagne and cameras. She told herself it wasn't greed, it was power, influence, proving she belonged to the elite. Eleanor treated the card as an investment. She bought properties, stocks, hired analysts. Every swipe was a move on her chessboard of life, her ambition burning hotter than ever. "I'll return with an empire," she murmured to herself. Maria, trembling but determined, went straight to a toy store with her son. Then a grocery store. Then a doctor for her mother. She filled her days giving her family everything they had been denied. For the first time, she didn't feel like she was drowning. Claire, overwhelmed, stood outside a homeless shelter for hours before walking inside and asking, "What do you need most?" The card became food, coats, books for schools, medicine for the forgotten. She lived simply, spending her nights writing notes of encouragement that she tucked into boxes of supplies. And Amelia, she went home, as always, to her small basement apartment. She had no card, no chance, just another day, but her eyes carried what the others did not: curiosity about the man behind the test, and something deeper, gratitude that she could even witness kindness being offered, even if it wasn't hers. The return. 30 days later, the women returned to James's suite. Victoria came first, her arms heavy with designer bags, her face glowing with indulgence. "Look at what I've built," she declared, showing pictures of parties where her name sparkled brighter than the chandeliers. Eleanor arrived next, folders in hand, spreadsheets spilling. "I've multiplied your gift," she said briskly. "Investments, properties, my net worth has tripled." This was about strategy, wasn't it? Maria entered quietly, her son at her side. Her eyes were wet, her voice trembling. We ate without fear this month. My son has new shoes. My mother had her medicine. You don't know what this meant to us. Claire came last, her face tired but radiant. I don't have wealth to show you, she whispered, placing a box on the table. Inside were handwritten notes from children, thank you drawings from families. But I wanted you to see the smiles you paid for. They belong to you as much as to me. James listened, his face unreadable. The room buzzed with tension, each woman waiting to be praised, validated, chosen. And then, Amelia, the maid, entered to clear the glasses. She wasn't part of this world, not really. But as she reached for the empty teacups, something fell from her apron pocket, a small notebook, worn at the edges. It landed open. On the page were sketches of ideas, plans to build a community kitchen, scribbled recipes for cheap but nourishing meals, lists of names, the homeless she saw outside the hotel, the elderly who came in just to warm their hands by the lobby fire. Dreams too big for her paycheck, yet written as if they were already alive. Silence blanketed the room. James bent, picked up the notebook, and read quietly. His steel blue eyes softened, his lips tightening against the swell of something he hadn't felt in years. Whose is this? He asked. Amelia flushed scarlet, snatching the notebook back. Just mine. Sorry, sir. Just silly ideas. But James didn't smile at her apology. Instead, he rose, walked to his desk, and pulled out one more envelope. One that no one knew existed. He placed it in Amelia's trembling hands. This, he said firmly, is for you. Her eyes widened. But I wasn't chosen. I'm just the maid. James shook his head slowly. No, you're the only one who never needed the card to dream of helping others. That makes you the one who deserves it most. The unexpected. In the weeks that followed, Amelia did what no one predicted. She didn't buy gowns or stocks. She didn't even keep an apartment for herself. She opened the Riverside Kitchen, a free community center that offered meals, cooking lessons, and warmth to anyone who walked in. She bought ovens, filled pantries, gathered volunteers. The rich came, the poor came, children laughed in the dining hall, elderly men found dignity again. And on the walls hung Amelia's drawings, once mere scribbles in a notebook, now reality. James visited often, sitting quietly at the back, watching the way people lit up in Amelia's presence. For the first time in decades, the billionaire who had everything felt he had finally given away something that mattered. Victoria's parties faded into gossip columns. Eleanor's empire grew, but her eyes often returned to the memory of Amelia's notebook, wondering if she had missed the point. Maria found work at the kitchen, her son running between tables with laughter. Claire became Amelia's partner in outreach, the two women unstoppable forces of quiet kindness. One snowy evening, a young boy tugged at Amelia's apron in the kitchen. Miss Amelia, he whispered, why do you give all this food for free? Don't you want to be rich? Amelia knelt, smiling gently. Rich, I already am, she said, gesturing at the crowded hall filled with families eating, talking, healing. Rich isn't what's in your wallet. It's what's in your heart when you see others smile. James heard her words from across the room. And for the first time in his long life, his eyes stung with tears he didn't hide. The ending that lasts. The story of the maid who changed everything spread across the city, then across the nation. Reporters came, cameras flashed, but Amelia never played the hero. She only said, it wasn't me. It was a gift, and gifts are meant to be shared. Years later, when James Whitmore's name was etched into history, it wasn't for the billions he built, it was for the billions he helped through one young maid who dared to dream bigger than herself. And the world remembered, not the 4 women who received unlimited cards, but the one woman who never expected it, yet did the most extraordinary thing. Because sometimes, the truest wealth is not given to those who ask loudly, but to the ones who quietly imagine a better world, and have the courage to make it real.